Today on Espresso Economics, we're going to look at something that is a dream of many young people: life as a digital nomad. We talk to researchers and experts, some of whom are living as digital nomads themselves, to get real-world advice about what it actually takes to make that dream a reality. And we'll give you a practical checklist that will help you decide if becoming a digital nomad is realistic for you. Keep watching, because there's more to this lifestyle than meets the eye. So, I'm sure you've seen the posts. I quit my job and became a digital nomad. Best decision ever! And it's true. The number of digital nomads has surged in recent years. This is partially because many of today's jobs are nomad-friendly, like software development, design, digital marketing, or even freelance consulting. The number has also risen owing to the general increase in remote work since the pandemic. About 1 in 4 workers in the EU now work remotely at least occasionally. A huge jump compared with before the pandemic, when it was around 1 in 20. But before packing your laptop and jumping on the next flight to Lisbon, it's important to understand the difference between remote work and digital nomadism. You see, they sound similar, but they're actually very different. And to explain this distinction, we spoke to Rowena Hennigan, a global expert in remote work and digital nomadism, and member of the advisory board of the Digital Nomad Association of Croatia.
The term digital nomad is even misunderstood often because it can encapsulate many different things. And even though the pandemic accelerated the acceptance of work from home, it didn't necessarily accelerate the remote work, which is a different thing. Remote work, infrastructure, organizational model, remote worker skills, all of that. Because working from home is only one place, whereas remote work and work from anywhere, moving to being a digital nomad, if you could imagine the layers moving out, is much more complicated because you move locations.
Today, work is a broad spectrum, and you need to know where you sit on that spectrum before deciding if you can even become a digital nomad or if it's just an Instagram fantasy. Let's hear from Rowena again.
It is complicated, but it does start with your status, your base status, and then we can move on to what makes a sort of successful digital nomad. You need to know your status, you need to check your contract, you need to know your company's policy.
So assuming your occupation and employment status allow you to adopt a digital nomad lifestyle, what kind of things do you need to consider before making the leap? First, let's talk about taxes. This is where things can get complicated. Where do you pay tax if you're always traveling? Do you even need to pay tax at all? To tell us more, we spoke with Kaisu Koskela, a researcher and policy advisor specializing in digital nomadism, who herself has been living as a digital nomad for over 15 years.
Taxes still apply, especially in the European context, because there's not many countries that are willing to relinquish your tax obligations just because you're not in that country at the time. It can get tricky if you start changing around your tax residency. I think that's when it gets tricky. Personally, as a digital nomad, I found that the easiest solution for me, for example, has been to remain a tax resident in my home country of Finland and pay all the dues there.
But being tax compliant isn't just about staying on the right side of the tax authorities. It's also about ensuring you make social security contributions. These are payments that give you access to important public benefits, like pensions, unemployment support, and healthcare. If you're a self-employed European and working remotely, you should be paying into a social security system, somewhere in the EU. And if you're not, you're creating gaps in your pension and health coverage that could hurt you down the line. And there is other paperwork to consider. If you're an EU citizen, you won't need a special digital nomad visa to work in another EU country. Free movement already lets you live, work, and set up as self-employed anywhere in the EU. But if you stay longer than 90 days, you're supposed to register your residence in the host country.
You can stay as long as you want, but after 90 days, you have to go to the local authorities and say, I'm moving here. Basically, that's the limit even for EU nationals.
And of course, once you leave the EU, free movement stops. You can't just stay in a country indefinitely. You'll need a special digital nomad visa or a long-stay tourist visa if you plan to live and work online from there. But taxes and visas are just the tip of the iceberg. What if I told you that there are hidden costs to the digital nomad lifestyle that nobody talks about? Right, so we've talked about taxes. Now let's talk about the costs nobody mentions in those Instagram posts. You may have budgeted for accommodation, flights, and food, but there's a whole category of expenses that are specific to the nomadic lifestyle, and they add up faster than you would think. But let's start with the positive: banking and finances. If you're traveling within the euro area, your financial life is going to be surprisingly straightforward. The beauty of the euro area is that you're in one big currency zone. No exchange rates, no conversion fees, no surprise price swings. You get paid in euro, spend in euro, so you can move from Lisbon to Berlin to Athens without even thinking about it. But the moment you step outside the euro area, say to the United Kingdom, Poland, or Denmark, or even further like Asia or South America, things change. You're back to juggling exchange rates. Your euro income might buy you more one month, less the next. You'll see small conversion fees, ATM charges, and prices that rise or fall with the currency. So for digital nomads, it's not just about how far your money goes, but how predictable it is. Inside the euro area, your finances are seamless and stable. Outside of it, you're reminded that money itself changes at the border. Here's another thing you need to think of: insurance. The European health insurance card entitles EU citizens to emergency medical treatment when in another member state. This card is great when you're traveling temporarily inside Europe, but it's meant for short stays, not for living long-term in another country. For this, you should consider getting health insurance designed specifically for people living in multiple countries. Here's Kaisu Koskela again.
If you get into a scooter accident in the middle of Thailand, not saying I have ever done that, but if you do, then you should make sure you have the right insurances in place, right? You can get a private health insurance that you can use anywhere in the world.
This one's more subtle, but it's real. There's an economic cost to constantly being in new places. Think about it. When you arrive somewhere new, you need to find a good café with reliable Wi-Fi, figure out the best mobile data plan, and find a quiet place for video calls. Some studies of digital nomads show that constant travel, time zone changes, and makeshift workspaces can also chip away at focus and structure. And if you're a freelancer, that time is money. But there's another reason some digital nomads choose life abroad, and it has less to do with sandy beaches and everything to do with money and cost of living. Economists even have a name for this cross-border hack. It's called geographic arbitrage. And once you understand how it works, it can completely change your financial picture. Here's Rowena Hennigan again to explain.
Geographic arbitrage, it's the benefits of a geographic move to reduce your costs of living. It means that people keep the same earnings or income. A lot of people now also can have the choice of relocating and reducing their costs, particularly within the European Union.
Here's what geographic arbitrage looks like in practice. Say you're a freelance designer earning 4,000 euros a month living in Amsterdam. Out of that, you pay taxes of around 1,500. Your rent might cost 1,400 a month, and you might spend 1,000 euros on living expenses. That means you might have 100 euros left over. Now let's take a look at the figures for working remotely from lower cost cities like Valencia, Krakow, or Athens. Due to lower rent and living costs, your monthly expenses might be 900 euros less. That is geographical arbitrage in action. Same income, same work, but a very different financial position, just by being strategic about your location. But notice, the tax bill stayed the same because this person did it properly. Now, there's another cost that we need to talk about, one that's harder to measure, but just as real: the toll that can come with living a nomadic life. This might sound a bit soft for an economics video, but ignoring this part can cost just as much as bad budgeting. To understand this better, we spoke to Professor Cristina Miguel, Associate Professor of Digital Communication at the IQC School of Management in Barcelona and co-author of several academic research papers on digital nomadism. It seems that despite the benefits of digital nomadism and opportunities for meeting like-minded people, it can be lonely and a tiring lifestyle.
That's one of the things people underestimate sometimes, how tiring digital nomadism can be, because it's, you are sightseeing, you have to have the work done, you need to find accommodation for the next location, a lot of travel arrangement and buy flights. So it's really tiring. This is one of the things that a lot of people underestimated, how tiring it is.
Here's what this looks like in practice. When you're constantly moving, you're essentially restarting your social life every few weeks or months. You're more likely to eat out alone because you don't have friends to cook with. You pay for co-working spaces partially for the work environment, but also because you need human interaction. That can be exhausting and lead you to have a lot of extra costs just from not being a part of an established community. According to Professor Miguel, for these reasons, many digital nomads evolve into what she calls digital slowmads.
So being a slowmad is basically someone that who stays in a country for a longer period, like minimum for a year usually. And actually, most people who choose to stay in a country and go for the digital nomad visa are actually slowmads, because most digital nomad visas are for 1 year, 2 years, even 3 years. So their life looks more like the life of an expat because they are settled, they live in the same city.
So, after all of this, should you become a digital nomad? Well, not before you run through this checklist. 1. What is your status? Is your occupation nomad friendly? Are you a freelancer working for yourself, or do you have a single employer? Is your employer okay with a full or part-time work from anywhere arrangement, or does your contract only allow you to work from home? Becoming a digital nomad starts with knowing the answer to these questions. 2. If you can work as a digital nomad, does it make financial sense? Can you afford the setup costs? You'll need 3,000 euros minimum for things like insurance, flights, accommodation. And have you calculated the cost of living in your chosen destination? 3. Are you prepared for the administrative burden? This isn't just about freedom and travel, it's about insurance, tracking expenses, and managing your tax obligations. 4. Have you researched residency rules and visa requirements for your destination? If you are traveling outside the EU, you'll need a visa that allows you to stay legally within that country while working remotely. Finally, we asked our experts what advice would they give to somebody considering the digital nomad lifestyle. Here's what they had to say.
I think, first of all, they should test the digital nomad lifestyle before leaving everything and thinking, okay, I'm going to be full digital nomad. So they can do workations, which a lot of people do in co-livings, to kind of see how they manage the balance between work and travel at the same time. So I would say that would be my advice, to test a little bit before having a major decision.
Community, finding support. Who do you know that's already doing this? Can you reach out to them? Could you have a soft landing by joining a group or joining up with some friends that are in a location?
You have to give up a lot. You have to live a minimal lifestyle. You have to be okay with saying bye to people all the time, but then also being able to say hi to people and reconnecting with them, and being very agile and mobile, and also not knowing where you're going to live next. You have to be okay with uncertainty.
So now I'd love to hear from you. Are you considering embarking on the digital nomad lifestyle? Or maybe you have already tried it. What was your experience like, and what financial surprises did you encounter? Drop us a comment and let us know, because hearing real-world experiences can help all of us make better decisions. Thanks for watching, and see you next time on Espresso Economics.